The new millennium, Y2K, the turn of a new century. It's the year 2000 and pro wrestling is reaching its mainstream pop culture peak. WWF, WCW, and ECW are all riding the wave of interest brought on by the Monday Night War. But a new challenger was set to enter the fray, and they plan to bring back wrestling for the whole family. This is Defunct Championship Wrestling, Episode 12, the WXO. Stop me if you've heard this before, but a TV producer, a couple of old-timers, and a group of mystery investors all got together and decided that wrestling had strayed far away from its good old family entertainment roots, and that they could start their own promotion to bring wrestling back the way it should be. A story we've heard countless times in this series, and we'll hear it again in the future, I'm sure. But that's exactly what happened with this episode's subject, the WXO. In late 1999, TV producer Howard Lipkind convinced some silent investors that the time was right to get into the wrestling game. I mean, in a way it wasn't the worst time. Wrestling in the US had never been hotter. Every week it seemed a WWF or WCW star was on a magazine cover, guest starring on a network series, or there was some news report about how popular wrestling was and whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah, strike while the iron's hot, I guess. People wanted wrestling. Lipkin and WXO signed on Ted DiBiase as a figurehead of the promotion. But according to a January 2000 Variety article, he was in fact the legit CEO of the company. However, that same article states Rene Goulet was funding the promotion? Goddamn Wurzel was backing it? So take that for what it's worth, but something tells me poor Chris Purcell here was getting worked. Moving on. WXO went to work and signed whoever was cheap and available for their TV tapings in Lakeland, Florida. They brought in talents with television experience like Eric Watts, Fred Ottman, Mike Enos, Tommy Rogers, and their booker, Barry Darsow. They also filled out the roster with independent names like Hack Myers, Ace Steel, Zandig, Scoot Andrews, and Adam Pearce. Yeah, that Adam Pearce. Funny thing about Darsow and Pearce being in the same promotion together is that there was a time in ROH where fans would chant Repo Man at Pearce to piss him off. Eventually though, he went along with it and whipped out a Repo Man mask. Good times. And obviously we can't forget Dan the Beast Severn. I think it's safe to say the roster was just okay. Anyone that could really sway some eyeballs was with WWF or WCW, so they did their best. I assume guys like Tito, Marty, and Virgil were on some sort of deals with the big two if they weren't getting a payday here. They filmed 3 or 4 episodes with decent matches and all sorts of contradicting stories and dead-on arrival angles. But for all the details on the actual TV episodes, check out Brian Zane's review from 3 years ago. WXO quickly signed a TV syndication deal that would see the show air in major markets throughout the country, like KTLA in Los Angeles, WNYW in New York, and WCIU in Chicago. They also inked deals for home video distribution, video games, pay-per-views, and other merchandising outlets. The president of Mark Anthony Productions, the distributor of the show, said that although the show will be edgy, the company will avoid the advertising pitfalls that have troubled the WWF, by keeping storylines free of foul language and sexual innuendo. They really push this idea that WXO is wholesome fun for the whole family throughout the TV show. You won't be embarrassed to watch it with your kids.
There are no thousands of people, millions of people have felt that same way, and we're giving the fans what they want. And as we said, it is wrestling you can watch with your children without being embarrassed by it, and that is a real shift, a seismic shift in professional wrestling now.
But the commentators Chris Cruz and Stan Lane are constantly ogling the 2 women on the show.
We're seeing more and more in WXO wrestling.
Back to the roots.
Absolutely. Back to the dark roots. Are you talking about dark roots? Oh, no. You're a natural blonde.
Yes, I am.
Didn't mean to apply anything there at all. Miss Gia! There she is. Hello.
Cool. So I've gone this far and I failed to mention what WXO stands for. Well, that's because they also didn't tell us what it stood for. At no point on the TV, in any press material, anything, do they mention what the initials meant. After their episodes aired in mid to late January of 2000, they were done. That was it. They pretty much ran out of money right away. And Lipkin's investors didn't see value of spending more money on it. They had set up for a second set of tapings to take place at Universal Studios, but that was done. Their website had listed Vader on the roster page, but he never came in. On TV, they had been preparing for Johnny Ace and Mike Barton, Bart Gunn, to come in from All Japan, but also now that couldn't happen. WXO even aired a portion of an All Japan match to hype up the team coming in. It's not something you saw very often on American wrestling TV at the time. Oh, and did I mention that their opponents were Jun Akiyama and Kenta Kobashi? Well, WXO gave them different names for some unknown and probably dumb reason, but Kobashi on US television? That's insane to me. WXO was a blink and you'll miss it promotion. Hell, blink and you might miss this video about them. If you weren't watching those 3 episodes before the internet, you may not have known this company ever existed. They were really scraping the bottom of the barrel talent-wise. It was guys who were career jobbers, guys who peaked 10 years before, and young guys who were about 5 years away from really putting it all together. Imagine what might have been if they launched maybe 2 years later. Maybe spent a little more money. In 2002, they could have had some bigger names, some younger guys that were TV ready. Would TNA have existed? Would ROH? The world will never know. With that said, it's very cool to see talents I'm a big fan of, like Ace Steel, Tommy Rogers, Adam Pearce, and Dan Severn, all in the same promotion at the same time. At the end of the day, WXO had everything working against it. An already well-served wrestling audience, the unavailability of marquee talents, no money, a small crowd. There really was very little DiBiase, Darso, or Lipkin could do about it. Not even Scott Nash could catapult WXO into the stratosphere. And you thought I wasn't going to mention Scott Nash, come on! To date, WXO has had no official release of the 3-episode run, however there's various TV rips all over the place online. I suggest watching it just for the wrestle crap of it all. You're not going to see anything tremendous, but you'll have a couple chuckles and get some unoffensive in-ring action. And that's the super brief story of WXO. I don't really have much of a closing statement for WXO. It was a wrestling promotion that existed. And that's about it. What are your thoughts on them? Let me know in the comments, as well as any other defunct promotions I should cover. I'm Scott from WrestleSpective. Watch wrestling, love wrestling. Thanks for watching.